Hello, remember me? I'm Tracey and this is Oliver Ray Knits. This is episode 9. If this is your first time here, I'm a maker based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I have a lot of hobbies and I really like to talk about them. I started this podcast way back in December. I plan to record at least once a month, but as it so often does, life intervenes. Nearly every time I planned to record, something came up, so it's been a while since I recorded. But I'm here today. Thank you so much if you are a returning viewer. I really appreciate it. Since it's been so long since my last episode, I really do have a lot of finished objects and more works in progress than I really care to admit. I'm not going to talk about everything I've made, but I do want to show you a few recently finished objects. I also want to introduce one of my brand new hobbies that I started pretty much at the beginning of July, and I'm going to call the segment a title that I am shamelessly stealing from my friends Carmen and Jackie from Knitting a Good Yarn podcast here on YouTube, and I'm calling it a Spintermission. You guessed it, I learned how to spin and I'm in love. It is such a wonderful hobby and I just can't wait to continue with it, and I'd like to share it all with you. Of course, spinning is not for everyone. I have been in your shoes. I will talk about it a bit later, but I will put timestamps down below so you can skip to the next segment if you want. I know that maybe you're here for the knitting today, so let's get started. So the first item that I will talk about is what I'm wearing. And I'm just going to stand up a little bit so you can see it. This is, let's see here, a little tank. And it is made out of Tannis Fiber Arts Silk Linen Blend. It's a light fingering weight yarn. The color is Cloak. It's this beautiful blue. It kind of has some feathery parts in it, a little bit of variegation. I think that is because the linen and the silk pick up the color differently. I've worked with Spindle before and I really liked it, and I'm not really much of a warm weather garment maker, but for some reason I just really was inspired to make a little tank. The tank itself is Camisole number 7 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I made the size 3, which is I think for a 35-inch bust. They want you to have either just a little bit of positive or negative ease, and I think that's just probably my bust size right now. It is a fairly easy garment to make. It's what do you call it? Broken rib. So one row is a straight knitting and the other one is rib, and it just creates a really gorgeous textured knit. Let me just see here. See a little bit closer. I'm a little rusty, so please forgive me. It's really comfortable. I literally just wove in the end, so I haven't actually worn it yet, and I haven't blocked it, so who knows if it's going to grow or what. The construction of it is really neat. You start at the back with this V, and it's a little bit of a shallow V, shallower than the front anyway, and then you pick up the sleeves and you work down the front, and then you join the two. There is a little bit of bust shaping, so there's some right here, there's some decreases on either side just to create a little bit of shaping, and yeah, I think it's actually really cute. It's a good length. I think I probably made it a little bit longer than the pattern called for, and I used exactly one ball of the Tannis Fiber Arts Willow. The yarn itself is a 65% blend of mulberry silk with 35% linen, and it is really, really glorious. I would highly recommend if you can get your hands on some. I think they're probably finished selling it for the year, but next spring I'm sure they'll release it. She also has a willow DK, which is really nice. Also the mulberry silk and linen, and at some point I'd like to try that as well. I have another colorway that is a gray that I'd like to make something else with it. And then I have a whole other skein of this blue because I bought 2 skeins of each color. So that is my Camisole number 7 by My Favorite Knitwear. And My Favorite Knitwear has a lot of patterns that I like to try. Some cardigans, a lot of different patterns. It's the first time I've actually used any of their patterns, so I think I'm going to be trying more in the very near future. The second finished object that I have, again, I literally just wove in the ends before I came up here. And this is a project that is quite dear to me. I'm going to call this shawl, I guess, the friendship shawl. And the reason for it will become very apparent when I tell you the story. So this shawl is made with, I think, 6 different wool, just 6 different skeins of wool. And each skein of wool is a particular sheep or blend of sheep from the Crocus Country Shepherdess. Now, this is a friendship with Brittany of Crux Fibers up in the Yukon. Crocus Country Shepherdess is located here in Alberta, near Caroline, I believe. I think that's kind of south central Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. And this wool is called low mileage wool, meaning it's 100% Canadian and 100% traceable. And this, let's start at the top. This is probably the easiest way. Each color in this shawl, there we go, represents a sheep or a blend of different sheep from Zera's flock from a particular year's clip. Brittany purchases the wool. She's a very good friend with Zera at Crocus Country and sends this to a mill in Ontario to be processed into different weights of yarn. So the very end, the darkest yarn is a light worsted, and then at the very end you have a light fingering. And just hold it up. It's a fairly big shawl. So I purchased the yarn from Brittany at Crux Fibers. I received it in March. I want to say this is a 2021 clip of Zera's yarn, but I could be mistaken. I originally started to make the Find Your Fade shawl by Andrea Mowry. It's a very popular pattern, and I almost came to the end, and then I looked at the shawl and I looked at the shape, which is a kind of, well, it's definitely an asymmetrical shape, an asymmetrical triangle. It's very, very long, somewhat narrow. It starts at a small point and then it sort of grows, and then, I don't know. I got nearly to the end and I realized that I really didn't like the shawl. And the yarn is so very, very precious that I wanted to make sure that I honored it with a pattern that was something I would wear. So I went to my friend, another friendship thread, Leanne from the Knitty Stew, and I said, oh, I just don't like this shawl. What am I going to do with it? My dear Leanne, I don't know how long she spent, but all of a sudden I was getting link after link after link to different ideas that I could use with this beautiful fade. And I decided at the end to use a pattern by Lisa Mutch. That would be Lisa Mutch, not Lisa Munch, called Shadow Ridge. And it is a crescent-shaped shawl that grows. You start with you can do it with any amount of colors, but I used the 6 that were part of the fade kit. And you just grow it. It's such a simple pattern, garter stitch, very relaxing, very, I don't know what the word is, but I really, really loved making it. It didn't take me very long. I think I started it at the end of June and I finished it yesterday. So I haven't blocked it yet. I've woven on all the ends. I don't know when I'm going to block it. I don't know. I like the crescent shape because you can wear it in a number of ways. You can wrap it around yourself. You can flip it. I'm not very good at wearing shawls, but oh, this feels like a hug. And every time I wear it, I know that I'm going to be reminded about friendship, whether it's a friendship between Zera and Brittany, or Brittany and myself, or Brittany and Leanne and myself. I'm actually taking a trip up to Whitehorse, where Brittany lives, along with my friend Leanne and my friend Kelsey at KZip Knits. We are going to visit Brittany, so I can be fairly sure I'm going to take this shawl along with me because it's very cozy. I can imagine it's going to be really wonderful travel. Knitting, and yeah, that is my shawl. I haven't weighed it yet. I really wanted to. I should have waited before it came on here, but anyway, it's really beautiful. However, it is a bit warm. We are having a rainy day today, but it is still a little on the warm side to be wearing a full wool shawl. See here, my final finished object that I will talk about today is another sweater, and let me grab it. This sweater was inspired by another friend, Jackie from Knitting a Good Yarn podcast. Showed this sweater, not this exact sweater, but showed an example of this sweater on an episode of their podcast, I think back in April. And I got obsessed. She used, Jackie and Carmen are both amazing, but Jackie used her hand-spun yarn for the color work. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But I was just so inspired, and I'm so glad that I did. This sweater was so much fun to knit. Let me put it on. It is called the Sheep Camp Sweater, and is by Jennifer Berg. And this was so much fun to knit. At the point of making the sweater, I wasn't a spinner yet, but I still really wanted to find something really, I don't know, something that was special. And this yarn is by a local company called Ancient Arts Fibers. And they are local dyers that just recently in the spring set up shop about 15 minutes from my house. And they are dyeing geniuses. So this is my sheep camp sweater. The yarn that I chose is their Lascaux DK. Lascaux DK is a very soft yarn that is a blend of 25% Manx Loughton sheep and 75% Putus Arenas. Now, I wanted to look up exactly what kinds of yarn there are, and I need to get one of those books. I think there's a couple of sheep and wool guides out there, and I really need to get one because the more I spin, the more I'm becoming aware of the different qualities of yarn. So I did look them up on Google. Hopefully this information is right. So Manx Loughton originated in the Isle of Man. One of the interesting things about this yarn is that it was brought back from near extinction 3 times in, I don't know, many centuries. It is on the Isle of Man, and Loughton actually refers to the color, which is mouse colored. It has a fairly high micron count, so it is used a lot in outerwear, but I'm guessing blending it with the Putus Arenas yarn, which is a Chilean yarn in the Patagonia region, a crossbreed sheep widely used in making hosiery. It's a bulky weight yarn, and I guess the mix of the two makes a very soft yarn. It is ever so slightly itchy, but I have not blocked it yet. This is completely unblocked. And I really, really like it, and it's very warm. The event that I will be attending, there is a potential that it is going to be either very hot or very cold or somewhere in between. So I am taking a few garments with me with the hope that I won't overheat or freeze or anything. I would be perfectly comfortable. I did make a couple of modifications. I'm pretty sure I lengthened the body. I like a fairly long torso, so I like to make it so don't show too much of my abdomen. I always make my sleeves longer, and I also added color work band right at the cast off in the color work. I knit a round and then another round of ribbing and then cast off in the contrast color. The two colors are, the green is Old Growth Forest, and the variegated color, I picked out a couple of colors and predictably they had little bits of green in them. But then I saw this color, I think it's called, what is it called? Autumn Lake. And it didn't have any green, but it did have blue and yellow and then this beige tan color. And the speckles just kind of pop out in all the design. I really just love this sweater. I'm not sure what size I made. I really was very horrible at making notes today. But I ended up using 3 of the balls of the Old Growth Forest. I guess skeins would be the appropriate words. Each skein has 250 meters and 100 grams. I used almost all of the green and then maybe about a quarter of the variegated color, the Autumn Lake. And I'm really happy with this sweater. I'm not sure if round yokes are really for me. It does have kind of a deep, what is this called? Deep armpits, or it's kind of a deep yoke. So there is a little bit, my armpits right here, and then the sweater ends here. But I think it's going to be a really nice layering garment that I can put on the not so cold fall days or, you know, early winter days that I can just throw on and then layer something underneath it, or just layer a really easy jacket over top. So I really like it. And yeah, maybe one day I will do a color work cardigan with, excuse me, a color work sweater with my own hand spun. But that will come at some point. So, all right, now we're going to take some time. We're going to take a little spintermission. Feel free to jump to the next segment if this is not something you're interested in, but I hope you will stay because, well, let's get on with it. All right. I would like to introduce you to my new friend. Her name is Lulu, and she is a Lendrum double treadle spinning wheel. I purchased her from Romney Wills in Ontario, and I'm in love, you guys. She's sort of becoming my new best friend. I'll tell you a little story if you want to hear it. So when I have been watching different podcasts throughout the years and people that are knitters start to talk about their spinning, for the most part, I have tuned out. I've been like, oh, no. I never, ever, ever thought that I want to be a spinner. And I thought about recently why I didn't ever want to start to spin. First of all, you know, why take that extra step? What is so special about hand spun yarn? And why would I ever want to do it when I can just go to my local yarn store and buy yarn? Secondly, I don't know, it's the fear of the unknown, a fear of failure, maybe. I thought that maybe I would start to do it and I just would fail horribly, and I tried to sign up for a couple of spinning classes, but they never seemed to work with my schedule. So I never actually even set hands on a spinning wheel. And then Anna from Longway Homestead was at the, what is it called? The Fiber Frolic in Edmonton last year. And I went to one of her workshops and I got to play around with some of the raw wool. And I held it in my hand, and this is not raw wool, but I played around with it in my hand, and I pulled it, and the yarn or the wool that she bought, the fleece that she bought, was really full of lanolin, and it smelled wonderful, and it was a little bit dirty, and I just, just the act of playing with it was so restful. So then, I sat on it for a while. I got a brochure for a couple of spinning wheels and really thought, well, maybe this is something I need to try. And then Jackie and Carmen started spinning on their own Lendrums. I think they started at somewhere in January. And I thought, oh, they seem to be really excited about it. Maybe this is something I should really do. Again, I tried to get into a few workshops or a few classes, but nothing worked. And then later on in April, I think it was when Jackie started talking about her chic camp sweater and said that she used her own hand spun. I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta do it. So I went online and I searched for Lendrum spinning wheels, and there was one available at Romney Wools in Ontario. And before I knew it, I had purchased a Lendrum double treadle spinning wheel, and it was a very emotional purchase. I don't really know why. I decided I was going to treat myself for my birthday this year. Really, I treat myself all the time. So anyway, so I bought this spinning wheel, and it came about a week and a half later. And I put it together, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is the most beautiful thing. Isn't she pretty? But then she sat for, I don't know, a good 2 weeks. I kept looking at her at the side of my eye, and I don't know. I don't know if she was judging me or not, but she's like, try me, try me. So I sat down one day, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I produced this. Now, if there is extreme art yarn, this would be it. It is barely spun. I had no idea what I was doing, and I sent a picture to my friends. I'm like, is extreme art yarn a thing? And they kind of laughed. They're like, you know what? Everybody has to start somewhere. So I worked on this, and I felt really, really disheartened. Oh, before I go any further, my very woolly godmother, Brittany at Crux Fiber, sent me a cloud and a whole bunch of other samples of fiber to try. And I think this is part of the cloud. And it was so much fun, and I was so grateful for that gift. And it really allowed me to play with things. So anyway, I made this stuff. I absolutely hated spinning. I'm like, okay, well, at least she's pretty. She's going to be a pretty decoration in the corner of my craft room. So a good month went by, and I decided to give it another try. And I realized that I actually had put her together wrong. I mixed up the Scotch tension bit right here, and I changed it. And then I tried again. This is my second attempt. Again, it's barely spun. It's knotty, and there's barely stuck together, and but I persevered. So this is my second attempt. It's very, very rough. And it's not the wool. The wool and the fleece was fine. It was me. So I went online and I bought some books, 3. And then I watched some tutorials on YouTube. I actually paid for one, and I will put the link down below because I can't remember who I watched, but it was really helpful. And then I asked some advice from my friends, and one of them just said to start playing, just letting your hands do what they want to do. And I don't know, one day it just clicked. I went from feeling like, not a failure because I was still trying something new, but started to really, see an improvement in my skills. And then I fell in love. And do you see this basket? This is all full of my spun yarn. I really have undiagnosed ADHD, and one of the symptoms or hallmarks of ADHD is hyperfocus, and wow, this really tapped into this. So this is yarn that I made, and this is yarn that I made, and this. You guys, I started my first skein at the beginning of July. I think I've taken all this yarn and I have labeled it with the date that I finished it, plied it together. And I think this, let's see, this one or this one. This was the first one that I completed. And it was July 2nd. And now I just have kept going. This is a terrible mix of all of the yarn that Brittany sent me. I just sort of got really excited and I started throwing everything into my wheel. I think this was probably June 30th or July 2nd. And I've just kept going. Some of them are definitely not very good. This is my July 5th. And I don't know, they have their own beauty. But I started getting better, and this is one of my later ones. I was lucky to get a fiber destache from a local spinner, and this is, let's see, a BFL bat from Fiber Goddess. It was a partial bat, so I think this is about 95 grams of fiber, and I wound it, and it's definitely getting better. And now I am ready to start knitting with my own hand spun. I'm really excited. I can't tell you, well, I can tell you what it makes me feel. Peace. I can lose myself for hours, and I don't always even have to have a podcast in the background or an audiobook. I can just sit there and I can just think about the yarn that I'm making. I can think about the origins of the fleece and the intentions in the dyeing process from the maker, and I can think about what my yarn is going to become sometimes, and then sometimes I'm just completely thinking about nothing. It's amazing. My brain is always on hyperdrive, and whatever it takes sometimes to make my brain calm is very, very welcome. And yeah, this spinning thing is absolutely magic. I'm definitely not going to give up on knitting anytime soon, but I think this gives me the same amount of satisfaction that knitting does. And I just realized that I'm really, really hot. I have to take the sweater off. So I have much more to share in the whole realm of spinning, and I have a lot more to learn. I have different types of fibers that I'm really interested in trying, and I've learned that there's a few that I definitely do not like to work with, and there's so much more to explore. The last thing I want to talk about is probably one of the reasons why I never tried to spin before, why I didn't think it would be something I would like. When people were talking about their spinning, they always, maybe not always, but often use the word had. They would say things like, oh, I just had to get through 4 ounces. Or, I had this pound of fiber and I just had to get through it and I just had to spin it up. Well, I always thought that the word had meant that they felt obligated to make it. And what I have quickly learned is that it's not an obligation from any outside force. It is an internal drive, or at least this is what I found, an internal have to do, internal desire to spin. I have to spin now every single day, just like I have to knit nearly every day, or I have to make something. And just realizing the difference between that makes me completely understand why anybody would ever decide to learn how to spin. So I hope that you find my perspective interesting. I think this is the end of my Spintermission. So let's talk about, did I actually bring more than one? Yikes. Let me have a look here. All right, I'm only going to talk about one work in progress because that is all I brought into this room with me. I forgot to say that I have just temporarily moved into a new space for recording. The ceilings in my studio are very tall, and I find that many of my recordings have a very echoey or tinny quality to them that I'm really not able to fix with just my auto tuner. I decided to try this as an alternative location. It's lower ceilings, and the room I'm in is actually Grandma's room. This is my mother-in-law's room when she comes to visit, and it's become Grandma's room because she's a grandma to my dogs and to my daughter, but since we're empty nesters, she's grandma to my dogs. And yeah, I thought I'd try it out in this room. I do have quite a bit of natural light, so maybe I'm blowing it a little bit, but maybe it'll be okay. So, my work in progress. Oh, actually, I think I might have another one that I can talk about too. So, what I'm going to make, now, the event that I have been alluding to, or I did allude to earlier, is Rhinebeck. I am going to what is referred to as Rhinebeck, but is formerly known as the New York Sheep and Wool Festival that takes place in Rhinebeck, near Rhinebeck, New York. And I am going to be attending this year with my friends, Jackie and Carmen. Again, this is a very Jackie and Carmen centric episode, but I think the jury's still out whether I invited myself along or they invited me to come with them. But we are going to go. We are coming on the Thursday. We have tickets to all 3 events on the Friday, which is Indie Untangled, Cakopalooza, and Wool and Folk. So we're going to have a very busy Friday, and I hope to meet a lot of people. And then the actual festival starts on the Saturday, and we plan to be there bright and early. And we are going to, I don't know, I can't imagine that it's not going to be fun. I am a little nervous that I'm going to be finding it overwhelming because I am a naturally introverted individual, and I do really enjoy my downtime, but it's something that is a bit of a, I don't know, I hate to use this term because I feel like it's overused, but a bucket list item. First time when I became a capital K knitter and heard about this sensation known as Rhinebeck, I thought, oh yeah, I'd like to go there one day. And my husband really isn't interested, so he's like, oh yeah, you go to your yarn convention, you have a good time with your friends. So I'm really excited to go. So I have to make myself some Rhinebeck sweaters. And I say Rhinebeck sweaters because I think I've got, in addition to my sheep camp, I have this sweater that I'm going to talk about, and I think I have 2 other ones planned. So I have been pretty much knitting all the time in preparation for this. I'm actually planning a whole Rhinebeck outfit, which may involve a sewn component as well, but we'll see. So this is going to be a Rhinebeck cardigan. As I mentioned, the weather can either be really sunny or rainy or somewhere in between, and I think that layers are going to be really important. So this is going to be a cardigan, and the pattern that I chose is the Dagna cardigan by Kristin Drysdale of Scandi Work. And this is going to be a very special cardigan because I'm using Canadian wool. This wool is from a maker called the Ferme Viola Farm, and she is located, I'm sorry, I do not know her name, in southern Manitoba near a boreal forest. And this wool came from this ewe. She is a ewe lamb, and this was clipped in 2021. Her name is Canelle, Canelle. And she is a Rideau Arcot sheep, which I did do a little research into what a Rideau Arcot sheep is. And this is a breed created by mixing several breeds in Canada in the 1980s. So it is a purebred now created in Canada to produce a highly reproductive breed that grows rapidly, and the fleece is used for wool, and there is also a meat component to it as well. It works up to be a medium gray, soft, and very lustrous wool. I bought this wool at Knit City, Vancouver in, I want to say 2021, in the fall, I think. And I attended Knit City. Amazing event. If you ever get a chance to go, please go. She was sharing a booth with Longway Homestead, and she had some samples of this wool knitted up into a garment. And I originally purchased it for a sweater for my husband, but I realized there was only 8 skeins left. So I purchased the 8, and then I purchased another 2 in a very comparative color. What's the word I'm thinking of? Anyway, and I just didn't like the pattern that it was going to turn into. So I put it aside and decided it was going to tell me when it was going to become another garment. So this is, it's a worsted weight yarn, and this is a bottom-up cardigan color work. So this is going to be the bottom, and then I'll work up to the sleeves, do each sleeve, and then join them together to make the color work. Now the color work is going to be my hand spun. It didn't take very long. When I was able to get the fiber destash from the local spinner, I included in it was this braid of, what is it? Shetland mixed with sari silk. And I told the guy that it was, I'd only been spinning for a few weeks. He said, well, maybe don't do this one right away because it is a bit of a difficult spin. The silk behaves in a very different way from the wool, and it can be kind of a challenge. Now, if you see all of this wool that I've made, the yarn that I made, well, I was flying through the fiber rather quickly, and I was running out of things to spin, so I decided to grab it. And I thought, you know, it's just practicing. This is all this is. It's just practice. It's like running or training for a marathon. You're not going to be expected to run the full 42 kilometers on the first day. You have to work up to it. So every little spin is practice towards making, I don't know, some sort of perfect skein of yarn. But when I spun this yarn and applied it together, it's so beautiful. It's a very thick and thin art type yarn, and I think it's going to go really well. It does work out to be a worsted weight, I think, even though there's thick and thin parts, and I think it's going to go really well with this. So the color work will be in this. The main body of the garment will be this. And you know what? I did this all yesterday, so I think it's going to knit up really quickly. The sleeves will take a while because they're going to be using small circumference needles. But I think it's going to be so cool. And the beauty of a cardigan is that if I'm too hot, I can just take it off and not worry about it. So between that one and my sheep camp, I have 2 garments on the go. I actually have a third one that's maybe about halfway done, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, but I'll keep working on it, I guess. So the other thing, I haven't actually started it, but I want to show you what my plans are. There is another knit along. It's the Fleur knit along, the Fleur shawl by Espace Tricot. Melissa Clulo, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, has a number of free patterns, and this is a gorgeous shawl. It's a lot of garter stitch and then interspersed with baubles. So again, I really want to create a very special shawl that's going to, I don't know, represent something. And I haven't really determined what this represents yet, but I think the inspiration will come to me when I'm working on it, because it did for the, again, Jackie and Carmen, who are hosting this knit along. So let me just grab some of my fiber. So I have, a couple weeks ago, I went to Stampede Breakfast hosted by Ancient Arts, and they had a number of vendors that they invited to have a little marketplace. And one of the vendors was Lillian Pine, which is a Calgary-based dyer, and she has yarn as well as fiber. So I purchased, I don't know, 4 braids of fiber. Now that I have it here, I can't, actually I do remember what it is. 4 braids of fiber, all in different colors. I'm learning really quickly that if you see something you like, you should buy more than 1 braid, because otherwise you can end up with a whole lot of just single skeins. And we know from experience, or I know from experience, that it's really hard to use 1 single skein sometimes. So this is a single that I just finished. I think I finished it yesterday. And it is 100 and, what is it? I think 110 or 115 ounces or something like that of a very finely spun single, which I'm going to ply with, here's the fiber. This is Corriedale, non-superwash Corriedale, and this is merino. So this is what I'm actually spinning right now. I'm going to ply the 2 of them together, so I think it'll create some sort of lighter version of blue, and then I'm going to pair it with this dandelion lace. It's a 74% baby Surrey alpaca with 26% silk, and I think that it's going to be kind of heavenly. I think I'm really inspired by water. Actually, I know I'm really inspired by water. I'm not a swimmer, but I get so much happiness from sitting and enjoying water, whether it's river, you know, visiting my mother-in-law. She has that gorgeous river lot, and I love watching the ducks go by. I love the ocean. Didn't spend nearly enough time there when I was living there in Vancouver, but I still really love it. It just fills me up. And yeah, so this is sort of vaguely water inspired. Again, I'm just going to wait and see what happens, and whatever my theme will be, I think the yarn and the fiber is going to tell me. So this is going to be a Fleur shawl, and yeah, I think they have until the winter solstice is when the cal ends. So if you're interested, it's a free pattern that's available on Ravelry, and I'll put a link below, and this is going to be my Fleur shawl. So I'm really excited about it. I think that I'm going to have more than enough fiber to ply it into a 2-ply fingering weight. And then with this, I think I have a couple more skeins of this, and I think it's going to be a really beautiful shawl. So this is not going to be a Rhinebeck garment, but I probably will bring along because I want to share it with my friends. So those are the things that I'm working on. Let's see, what else do I have going on? Well, I think I mentioned that we have had a very busy spring and summer so far. We did get our landscaping done. I will try to share some footage or some photos of our beautiful landscaping. We had planted a ton of hydrangeas in the back that were growing huge and beautiful, and then a couple of weeks ago, the hailstorm pretty much obliterated all the blooms on them. So now we just have some green shrubs back there, but they're coming back. They grow fairly quickly, and the good thing is we didn't have any house or auto damage, which was not the case for a lot of people in our neighborhood. My husband has been doing some film work. Calgary is the site of a lot of film and television productions. They use this as their location. We have beautiful just beautiful landscape, and we have some gorgeous old buildings and it's just it's a beautiful city. I love Calgary, and it's just a really great destination for a lot of film producers. So my husband has been working as what is called a background performer, formerly known as extra, and he's been doing it since March, and I think he's been part of 4 or 5 productions so far, and he's been really enjoying it. But it's meant our life is a little bit busy. He's off doing his thing, and then I started a new rotation in May, at the beginning of May. I'm still working as a NICU nurse, but I'm working 8-hour shifts rather than 12-hour shifts. 8 hours just allows me to have a little bit more flexibility with my personal life. I can still work on my hobbies during the morning and then go into work in the evening and feel like I still have part of my day. And good and bad changes can really throw me off my routine in a very dramatic way. And it took me a little bit to adjust to the new schedule, but now that I'm there, I'm really, really enjoying it. We also took a trip out with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law to Vancouver at the end of May to celebrate my daughter's graduation from UBC. She graduated with a degree from the Bachelor of Science in Biology, and now she's back working on a master's degree, and it was a really big accomplishment for her. And we were really, really excited to be able to see her walk across the stage to get her diploma. In addition to my trip to Whitehorse and to Rhinebeck, my husband and I are going to go to Las Vegas for a couple of days with some good friends at the beginning of September. And, you know, Vegas is not my favorite destination, but I think it is just going to be a lot of fun because the couple that we're traveling with are a lot of fun. And then the rest of the time, we're just going to enjoy living in Calgary. I honestly haven't done a lot of Calgary things. We don't go to the Stampede, and I haven't been able to get out and do a lot of hiking or water sports or anything like that, just for time and logistics. Sometimes it can be a bit hard to coordinate those things, but it's something I'm looking forward to. We've had a wonderful spring and summer weather-wise. It's been very hot some days, but we've also had a few rainy days and, one unfortunate hailstorm. And yeah, Calgary's just really beautiful right now. I'm going to endeavor to record a little bit more often. And I really appreciate that you have stopped by to listen to me ramble on about my craft. I am still working on other things. I do have a quilt that is getting close to being done. 2 quilts actually. Well, 1.5 quilts that is getting close to being done. I did devote the month of May to miniatures, but I didn't succeed in finishing everything, so that is going to be something I'm going to show off at a later time. What else? Oh, I'm always going to find new hobbies, but for right now, knitting and spinning are really filling my cup very well. So again, thank you so much for coming by, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend and that you take the time to make things yourself. Happy making. Mwah.